The ninth satisfying echo faded into the Afghan night as Staff Sergeant Moira Dunn chambered another round and whispered the same words she had whispered 8 times before. 81 more. Through her scope, she watched the enemy sniper crumple against the mountainside, rifles still warm in dead hands. Somewhere in the valley below, the Taliban's elite female unit would wake to find another sister gone. They called themselves the Daughters of the Mountain. They had killed 90 of Moira's brothers in 18 months of coordinated terror. Command said hunting them was impossible. Command did not know that Moira Dunn had spent 11 months learning to kill from the very women she now hunted. She broke down her position with mechanical precision, erasing every trace of her presence from the ridge. The motion came automatically after weeks of this work. 9 down, 81 remaining. Each number carved into a small notebook she kept against her chest, next to the dog tags of 17 men who had died trying to bring her home from captivity 3 years ago. Before dawn, she reached the wire at FOB Stalwart, nodding to the gate guard who had long since stopped asking where she went at night. The forward operating base sprawled across a mountain plateau like a scar on the landscape, home to 200 soldiers who had no idea that their quietest member spent her evenings hunting ghosts. Chief Warrant Officer Declan Vance waited in the intelligence shack, coffee cold in his hand, eyes sharp despite the hour. He was the only person on this base who knew the full scope of her mission, and even he did not know everything. Another one, Morris said. Vance nodded slowly. That makes 9. Command is getting nervous. Command can file their concerns with the families of the 90 men these women killed. Vance set down his coffee. The colonel wants to see you. 0800. Before we continue with Moira's hunt, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. Perhaps you know someone who served in Afghanistan, or maybe you have witnessed the quiet dedication of someone who carries a mission no one else can see. Colonel Raymond Hurst kept his office cold enough to see breath, a power move Moira had learned to ignore during her months at Stalwart. He did not rise when she entered, did not offer a seat, did not look up from the papers on his desk for a full 30 seconds. Staff Sergeant Dunn, he said finally, his voice carrying the practiced disappointment of a man who had never seen actual combat. I am hearing disturbing reports about unauthorized operations outside the wire. Moira stood at attention, her face betraying nothing. Sir, 9 enemy casualties in 6 weeks. All female. All snipers. He looked up then, his eyes searching for something to use against her. Care to explain how a support soldier attached to my intelligence section is racking up a body count that would make a SEAL team jealous? I am conducting reconnaissance as authorized by my mission parameters, sir. Hurst leaned back. Your mission parameters. He said the words like they tasted sour. Let me be clear about something, Staff Sergeant. I do not believe in this ghost story about some elite female sniper unit. I think you are suffering from unresolved trauma related to your captivity, and I think Chief Warrant Officer Vance is enabling your delusions because he feels guilty about how long it took to recover you. The words landed like calculated blows. Moira felt each one, but did not flinch. She had survived 11 months in enemy hands. A bureaucrat with polished boots could not touch her. With respect, sir, the Daughters of the Mountain are responsible for 90 confirmed kills across 7 provinces. They are trained, coordinated, and expanding their operations. Hurst waved his hand dismissively. Isolated incidents attributed to a boogeyman. My analysts see no pattern. Your analysts are not looking for one. The temperature in the room dropped another degree. Hurst rose slowly, walking around his desk to stand too close to Moira, using his height to intimidate. I'm going to give you one chance, Staff Sergeant. Confine yourself to base operations. Stop these unauthorized excursions. Focus on recovery from whatever happened to you in those mountains. He paused. That is not a suggestion. Moira met his eyes without wavering. Understood, sir. She did not say she would comply. Hurst did not notice the difference. That night, alone in her quarters, Moira pulled out the photograph she kept hidden in her footlocker. A young Afghan girl, perhaps 14, holding a rifle nearly as tall as herself. dark eyes that held both fear and determination. On the back, written in Moira's own hand, a single name, Yalda. She had taken the photograph 3 years ago, during the darkest chapter of her life. The girl had been a student. Moira had been the teacher. Not by choice. Never by choice. "I'm sorry," Moira whispered to the photograph. "When the time comes, I will make it quick." Sleep brought the nightmares it always brought. The cave. The cold. The voice of a woman called Nazreen, patient as stone, teaching Moira the very skills she now used to destroy everything Nazreen had built. In a dream, Nazreen smiled and said the word she had said 1,000 times during those 11 months. "You're my ghost now. My returning ghost." And ghosts never truly leave the mountain. Moira woke at 0300, drenched in sweat, a Pashto prayer on her lips that she did not remember learning. Vance found her at the memorial wall as the sun rose, her fingers tracing names carved into stone. 17 names. The men who had died during the rescue attempts. The men who had given everything to bring home a woman they had never met. He handed her a tablet displaying intercepted communications. Moira read the translation 3 times before the words fully registered. "They know," Vance said quietly. "They know someone is hunting them." The intercepted message was brief. "All sisters alert. The ghost has returned. She hunts us now as we once hunted her brothers. Find a returning ghost. Kill her before she kills us all." Moira's blood went cold. She had not heard that name in 3 years. The returning ghost. It was what Nazreen had called her during captivity. A private name, spoken only in the caves where Moira had been broken and rebuilt into something dangerous. If the daughters were using that name, it meant only one thing. "Nazreen knows," Moira said. "She knows it is me." Vance studied her face. "Is that a problem?" Moira looked back at the memorial wall, at the 17 names of men who had died for her, and felt something cold settle into her chest. "It means the hunt just got interesting." The memorial wall held more than names. It held promises. Moira touched each of the 17 carved letters every morning, a ritual she had begun the day she returned to duty after her rescue. Private First Class Santiago Ibarra, Corporal Dean Whitfield, Sergeant Amara Osei. She knew their faces from photographs their families had sent. She knew the circumstances of each death from after-action reports she had requested against regulations. She knew that every single one of them had volunteered for the missions that killed them. 17 men who chose to die looking for a woman they had never met. Moira carried that weight like a second skeleton beneath her skin. The morning briefing brought nothing useful. Routine patrol reports. Supply logistics. Colonel Hurst droning about operational security while carefully avoiding eye contact with Moira. She sat in the back row and counted the days since her last kill. 2. Too long. The daughters would be adjusting their patterns, moving their positions, adapting to the threat she represented. After the briefing, a voice stopped her in the corridor. "Staff Sergeant Dunn." She turned to find a soldier she recognized but had never spoken to directly. Sergeant First Class Tomas Ibarra. The name registered immediately. Santiago's older brother. He had transferred his stalwart 4 months ago, and Moira had made a point of avoiding him ever since. "Sergeant Ibarra," she said carefully. His face was carved from the same stone as his brother's memorial inscription. Hard, unforgiving. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so the passing soldiers would not hear. "I know what you're doing out there. The night missions. The kills no one talks about." Moira kept her expression neutral. "I do not know what you mean. My brother died trying to rescue you. He was 22 years old. He had a daughter he never got to meet." Ibarra's voice cracked slightly before hardening again. "I have spent 3 years wondering if his death meant anything. 3 years wondering if the woman he died for was worth it." The words cut deeper than Hurst's ever could. Moira felt them slice through the armor she had built around herself. "And now I find out you are out there hunting the people who killed him," Ibarra continued. "Hunting them alone, without support, without backup. Like his sacrifice meant so little you cannot even be bothered to stay alive long enough to finish the job. That is not what this is. Then what is it?" His eyes burned into hers. "What could possibly justify the risk you are taking?" Moira glanced around the corridor. Empty now. She lowered her voice to barely a whisper. 90 of our brothers. That is what justifies it. 90 men killed by a unit that command refuses to acknowledge exists. Your brother was one of 17 who died in rescue operations. But there are 73 others. Sniped in convoys. Picked off on patrol. Assassinated in their bunks. All by the same group. All by women I spent 11 months living among. Ibarra processed this, his anger shifting into something more complex. You were their prisoner. I was their student. Moira let the words hang between them. Not by choice. Nazreen, their leader, she wanted to break me. When breaking me did not work, she decided to use me instead. Teach the American to shoot like us. Make her understand our cause. Then send her home to spread our message. But you did not spread their message. No. Moira's jaw tightened. I came home, and I started hunting them with everything they taught me. Ibarra was quiet for a long moment. Then why did she let you go? A woman that dangerous does not release weapons into enemy hands. Moira had asked herself that question every day for 3 years. She still did not have an answer that satisfied her. I do not know, she admitted, but I intend to ask her before I put a bullet in her skull. The mess hall was nearly empty when Moira sat down with her tray. She had no appetite, but eating was discipline, and discipline was the only thing holding her together most days. Across the base, she knew Vance was analyzing the intercepted transmission, trying to trace its origin. The returning ghost. Nazreen's name for her. A name that should have died in those mountains. Her thoughts were interrupted by Vance sliding into the seat across from her, tablet in hand, face grim. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Just one. The daughters are planning something. Vance turned the tablet toward her. Intercepted communications over the past 72 hours. Coordinated chatter between at least 6 positions across the province. Moira scanned the translations. The language was coded, but she recognized the patterns from her time in captivity. Operational planning. Target selection. Timing coordination. This is an attack plan, she said. 3 targets. Vance pointed to a map on the next screen. Firebase Phoenix. Outpost Keating. And here, Stalwart. Simultaneous hits. That is what it looks like. If they pull this off, we're looking at dozens of casualties. Maybe more. Moira studied the map, her mind running calculations she wished she did not know how to make. The daughters operated in teams of 2. 3 simultaneous attacks meant at least 6 shooters minimum. Produce putte. Plus support. When, she asked. Unknown, but the chatter suggests soon. Days, not weeks. She pushed her tray aside. I need authorization for expanded operations. I could disrupt their preparations if I move fast enough. Vance shook his head slowly. Hurst will never approve it. He is already looking for reasons to confine you to base permanently. Then we go around him. Moira, Vance said, using her first name for the first time in months. If you go outside the wire without authorization and something goes wrong, I cannot protect you. Court-martial would be the least of your problems. She met his eyes. 17 men died to bring me home. How many more have to die before command takes this threat seriously? Vance had no answer for that. Neither did she. That night, Moira dreamed of the caves again. But this time the dream shifted. She was not the prisoner. She was the teacher. A young girl sat before her, rifle disassembled on the stone floor, dark eyes hungry for knowledge. Show me again, the girl said. Show me how to breathe between heartbeats. Dream Moira picked up the rifle and began to explain. The girl listened with perfect attention, memorizing every word, every gesture. When the lesson ended, she looked up with something like love in her eyes. Will you stay with us forever, teacher? No, Dream Moira said. I will leave. And when I do, I will come back for you. To save me. Dream Moira did not answer. She woke with tears on her face and Yalda's name on her lips. The dawn briefing brought news that turned Moira's blood to ice. Firebase Phoenix had been hit overnight. A single sniper. 16 Americans dead. The shooter had disappeared before response teams could mobilize. Witness descriptions were limited. Female. Young. Exceptional accuracy. Moira did not need descriptions. She knew exactly who had killed 16 of her brothers. Yalda had graduated from student to assassin, and Moira was running out of time to stop what was coming. 16 flag-draped caskets lined the tarmac at Bagram. Moira stood at attention with the rest of Stalwart's personnel, watching the honor guard load each one onto the transport aircraft. Somewhere in that row was a soldier who had survived 3 deployments, a medic who had saved 40 lives, a father of 4 who had promised his children he would be home for Christmas. Yalda had killed them all in under 3 minutes. Colonel Hurst delivered remarks about sacrifice and duty. His words floated past Moira like smoke. She was calculating angles, distances, the skill required to eliminate 16 targets before anyone could return effective fire. Yalda had learned well, too well. After the ceremony, Moira found Vance in the intelligence shack. "I need to move tonight," she said. "Hurst has locked down all operations pending investigation. No one goes outside the wire." Moira slammed her palm against the table. "Investigation. 16 men are dead, and he wants to investigate. The daughters are preparing 2 more attacks, and we're sitting here filling out paperwork." Vance looked up from his screens, exhaustion carved into the lines of his face. "I know, but if you go out there now, unauthorized, and something happens, Hurst will use it to bury you. And then who hunts the daughters?" The logic was sound. Moira hated it anyway. "What about a conventional response?" she asked. "Send a platoon to disrupt their positions." Vance pulled up a tactical display. "Already tried. Hurst authorized a patrol to investigate suspected sniper positions in the Karangal. They walked into an ambush 2 hours ago. Casualties. 3 wounded. No deaths, thank God. But the daughters saw them coming from 5 kilometers out. Conventional forces cannot touch these women, Moira. They know the terrain too well. They know our tactics too well. Because I taught them." Vance did not deny it. Instead, he turned his chair to face her fully. "There might be another way. Off the books. Completely deniable." Moira waited. "I have discretionary authority for intelligence gathering operations. Small footprint. No official paperwork. If something were to happen during one of those operations, something that resulted in enemy casualties, well..." He spread his hands. "Intelligence work is unpredictable. You would risk your career for this." Vance was quiet for a moment. "When you were captured, I was the one who argued against continued rescue attempts. I said the cost was too high, that we had already lost too many trying to find 1 soldier." He met her eyes. 17 men died, proving me wrong. I owe them. I owe you." Moira felt something shift in her chest. For 3 years, she had carried the guilt of those 17 deaths alone. She had never considered that others might carry it too. "Tonight," she said, "I have coordinates on 2 probable positions from the chatter analysis. If I move fast, I can hit both before dawn." Vance nodded slowly. "Intelligence gathering operation. Authorized." He paused. "Come back alive, Moira. That is an order. The mountains at night belong to ghosts." Moira moved through the darkness like she had been born to it, her footsteps silent on the rocky terrain. The first position was 6 kilometers from the wire, a ridge overlooking the main supply route into Stalwart. Classic sniper placement. Excellent sight lines. Multiple egress routes. She approached from the north, using a goat trail that did not appear on any military maps. Nazreen had shown her this path 3 years ago, during a training exercise that felt like a lifetime past. The daughter was young, maybe 20. She lay prone behind a rock formation, rifle trained on the road below, completely unaware of the shadow rising behind her. Moira could have taken a shot from 50 meters. Clean, professional. Instead, she moved closer. She needed to see the face. Needed to know if this was someone she had trained, someone she had shared meals with in those cold mountain caves. The girl shifted, reaching for a water bottle, and Moira saw her profile in the moonlight. A stranger. One of Nazreen's newer recruits, brought in after Moira's escape. The relief lasted only a moment. Stranger or not, this woman had chosen to kill Americans. Had probably already killed some of the 90. Moira raised her rifle. The shot echoed across the valley. Number 10. She did not wait for confirmation. The second position was 4 kilometers east, and the sound would have carried. The element of surprise was gone. Now it was a race. Moira ran. The terrain fought her every step. Loose scree threatened to twist her ankles. But she had trained for this, had been forced to run these mountains until her lungs burned and her legs screamed, all under Nazreen's patient instruction. You must become the mountain, Nazreen had said. Let it carry you instead of fighting it. Moira let the mountain carry her now. The second position was a shallow cave overlooking a tributary valley. Moira approached from above, rappelling down a cliff face that would have terrified her before captivity. Now it was just another obstacle between her and the next name in her notebook. This daughter was older, experienced. She had heard the distant shot and was already packing her equipment when Moira appeared in the cave mouth. For a frozen moment, they stared at each other. The daughter's hand moved toward her sidearm. Moira was faster. Number 11. She searched the body quickly, professionally. Radio, maps, a photograph of a young boy, maybe 5 years old. Someone's mother, someone's daughter. Moira pushed the thought aside and focused on the intelligence value. The maps confirmed her fears. Outpost Keating was marked with detailed annotations. Guard rotations, weak points, timing windows. The attack was planned for 72 hours from now. She keyed her radio. Vance, I have confirmation on Keating. 72 hours. Copy that. Vance's voice crackled through the static. Get back to base. We need a brief command. Moira started to respond when a sound stopped her cold. A click. Metal on stone. Someone else was in the cave. She spun, rifle raised, and found herself staring into a muzzle flash. The bullet grazed her shoulder as she dove for cover. Pain exploded across her left side, but she forced it down, forced herself to move, to think. A third daughter. Backup she had not anticipated. Moira fired blind, buying seconds, then rolled behind a rock formation. Blood soaked her sleeve. Not arterial. Survivable. But her mobility was compromised. The third daughter called out in Pashto. I know who you are, returning ghost. Nazreen speaks of you often. She speaks of the day she will watch you die. Moira steadied her breathing. Counted heartbeats. The voice had come from her left, maybe 10 meters. She speaks of many things, Moira replied in the same language. Most of them are lies. Movement. A shadow shifting against deeper shadow. Moira tracked it with her scope, waiting for the moment of exposure. The daughter made her move. Moira made hers faster. Number 12. The walk back to Stalwart took twice as long as the approach. Moira pressed her hand against the wound in her shoulder and focused on putting one foot in front of the other. 3 kills in one night. 81 was now 78. And Command finally had proof they could not ignore. Vance met her at the wire with a medic. As they patched her shoulder, he delivered news that made the pain worth it. Hurst is briefing battalion on the Keating intelligence. They're moving assets to reinforce. Good. Vance hesitated. There's something else. The radio we recovered from the second position. It was still transmitting when you took it. Moira went cold. They heard everything. Everything, Vance confirmed, including your voice. Nazreen knows for certain now. She knows the returning ghost is real. And she is mobilizing everything she has to find you. Moira looked out at the mountains, black shapes against the lightening sky. Good, she said again. Let her come. Ibarra was waiting outside the aid station when Moira emerged, her shoulder bandaged and her arm in a sling. His face was unreadable. 3 kills, he said. One night. And you almost died. Almost does not count. He stepped closer. Why did Nazreen let you escape? The question had been burning in him since their conversation in the corridor. You said you did not know, but I think you do. I think you have always known. Moira met his eyes. The truth was a weight she had carried alone for 3 years. She let me go because she thought I would break, Moira said quietly. She thought I would come home and fall apart. Tell everyone what she taught me. Become a voice against the war. Her weapon inside American minds. But you did not break. No. Moira's voice hardened. I came back stronger. And now I am using everything she gave me to destroy her. Ibarra studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. My brother believed in you, he said. Believed enough to die for you. I think I'm starting to understand why. The classified debriefing file was 3 inches thick. Mora had never seen it, had never been allowed to see it. The official version of her captivity, sanitized for command, ran barely 20 pages. This was something else entirely. Ibarra set it on the table between them in the empty briefing room. I have a friend in intelligence archives at Bagram. He owed me a favor. Moira stared at the folder like it might bite her. Where did this come from? Your original debriefers, the psychologists, the interrogation specialists who spent 6 weeks picking apart everything you told them after your rescue. He tapped the cover. This is what they really thought, what they really concluded, the version that never made it to your service record. She reached for the folder, then stopped. What does it say? Read it yourself. Mora opened the file. The first page was a psychological evaluation dated 3 weeks after her return. Subject displays remarkable psychological resilience, but exhibits signs of complex trauma bonding with primary captor, designated Nazreen. Subject's detailed knowledge of enemy tactics, training methods, and organizational structure suggests prolonged cooperative interaction beyond standard prisoner treatment. She turned pages. More evaluations. More clinical observations. More words that reduced 11 months of horror to academic analysis. Then she found a section that made her blood freeze. Assessment. Subject's account of escape contains significant inconsistencies. Physical evidence at recovery site does not support narrative of self-extraction. Recommendation. Subject may have been deliberately released by captors for unknown strategic purpose. Suggest continued monitoring. They knew, Moira whispered. They always knew. Ibarra nodded. And they buried it, classified it so deep that even you could not access it. He leaned forward. The question is why? Why would command hide the fact that Nazreen let you go? Mora closed the file. Because it raises questions they do not want to answer. If Nazreen released me deliberately, then I am either a security risk or an asset she intended to use. Either way, my presence in theater becomes complicated. But they let you stay. They let me stay because I am useful, because I know things about the daughters that no one else knows. Mora pushed the file back across the table. And because admitting they have a potential compromised soldier hunting their most dangerous enemy would be a public relations nightmare. Ibarra absorbed this. Then he asked the question that had been hanging between them since the corridor. Why did she really let you go, Don? Not the version you told me before. The real reason. Mora was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the sounds of base operations continued. Generators humming. Vehicles moving. Soldiers going about their duties unaware of the conversation happening in this room. She let me go because she loved me, Moira said finally. Not romantically. Something deeper. She saw me as her greatest student. Her legacy. The proof that her methods could transform anyone into a weapon. And she thought you would use that weapon for her cause. She thought I would come home broken, that I would see Americans the way she sees them, as invaders, occupiers, murderers of children. Moira's voice hardened. She showed me photographs, footage, families destroyed by our airstrikes. Village rasé. She wanted me to understand why the daughters exist, why they fight. Did you understand? Yes. Moira met Ibarra's eyes. I understood perfectly, and I still chose to hunt them. Because understanding why someone kills does not make the killing justified. Because 90 of my brothers are dead, and someone has to answer for that. Ibarra sat back. His expression had shifted from suspicion to something closer to respect. My brother, Santiago, he volunteered for every rescue mission. 4 times he went into those mountains looking for you. The 5th time, he did not come back. I know. Do you know what his last words were? Ibarra's voice cracked slightly. The soldier who was with him when he died, he told me. Santiago said, "We do not leave anyone behind." Then he took a bullet meant for his squad leader and bled out before the medevac could reach him. Moira felt the weight of those words settle onto her shoulders alongside all the other weights she carried. "I am sorry," she said. "It was inadequate. Everything was inadequate. Do not be sorry." Ibarra stood, his composure restored. Be worthy of it. Finish what he died for. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Outpost Keating received reinforcements. Guard rotations were altered. Sniper countermeasures were implemented. For the first time since Moira had begun her hunt, Command was taking the daughter threat seriously. But Moira knew it would not be enough. The daughters would adapt. They always adapted. Nazreen had built her organization to be fluid, decentralized, impossible to pin down. Reinforcing one target just meant they would shift to another. Vance confirmed her fears on the second evening. Chatter has gone dark, he reported. Complete communications blackout. Either they have postponed the operation or they have changed their methods. They have changed targets, Morris said. Keating is too hard now. They will hit somewhere we are not expecting. Any idea where? Morris studied the map on Vance's wall. The daughters operated on symbolism as much as strategy. Nazreen believed in messages, in statements that would echo beyond the immediate tactical impact. Firebase Phoenix, Morris said. They already hit it once. 16 dead. If they hit it again, while we are focused on Keating, it sends a message that we cannot protect our people, that nowhere is safe. Phoenix has been reinforced too. Not enough. Moira traced the approaches on the map. I know how Nazreen thinks. She will see Phoenix as unfinished business, a wound she can reopen. Vance studied her face. You want to go there? I want to end this. Moira turned from map. Request transfer to Firebase Phoenix. Temporary assignment. Intelligence liaison. Hurst will never approve it. Then do not ask Hurst. Go over his head. Battalion commander. Division if you have to. Moira stepped closer. The daughters are coming, Vance. I can feel it. And when they do, I intend to be waiting. That night, Moira found herself at the memorial wall again. 17 names carved in stone. 17 lives ended in service to a woman most of them had never met. She pressed her palm against Santiago Ibarra's name. Your brother is starting to trust me, she whispered. I do not know if I deserve it, but I'm going to try to be worthy of what you gave. A sound behind her. Footsteps on gravel. She turned to find Ibarra standing at the edge of the light. Talking to ghosts, he asked. Always. Moira stepped back from the wall. They are better listeners than the living. Ibarra moved to stand beside her, looking at the names. I come here too sometimes. Late at night, when no one is watching. I tell him about my day, about the missions, about the soldiers I serve with. He paused. I tell him about you. What do you say? That you're either the bravest soldier I have ever met or the craziest. He glanced at her. Maybe both. Moira almost smiled. Your brother would have fit right in then. Yeah. Ibarra's voice softened. He would have. They stood in silence for a moment. Two soldiers united by grief and purpose. Transfer came through, Ibarra said finally. Phoenix, I requested assignment to accompany you. Moira turned to look at him. You do not have to do this. Yes, I do. He met her eyes. Santiago died, trying to bring you home. The least I can do is help you finish what you started. Before Moira could respond, Vance appeared at a run, tablet in hand, face pale in the moonlight. We have a problem, he said. New intercept. The daughters are not targeting Phoenix. Then where? Vance turned the tablet toward them. The translation glowed on the screen. They have a hostage. An American soldier captured 2 days ago during a routine patrol. And Nazreen is offering a trade. The hostage's name hit Moira like a physical blow. Corporal Elena Vasquez. The woman who had been in Moira's convoy 3 years ago. The woman Moira had watched fall during the ambush. The woman she had believed dead for over 1,000 days. Elena was alive, and Nazreen was using her as bait. Elena Vasquez had been 23 years old the day the convoy was hit. Moira remembered her laugh. Remembered the photograph she carried of her grandmother in Tucson. Remembered the way she had sung corridos under her breath during long patrols to keep herself awake. She remembered watching Elena fall when the ambush began. Remembered the blood. Remembered believing with absolute certainty that her friend was dead. 3 years. Elena had been alive for 3 years while Moira hunted ghosts and whispered names at memorial walls. The intelligence report provided sparse details. Corporal Vasquez had been captured during a routine supply run 2 days ago. Her convoy had been ambushed in the same valley where Moira's convoy had been hit 3 years prior. Same tactics, same precision, same outcome. Except this time, Nazreen wanted the Americans to know she had a prisoner. The message had been clear. The returning ghost will come to coordinates specified at midnight in 3 days. She will come alone. She will come unarmed. In exchange, we will release the American woman unharmed. If these conditions are not met, the prisoner will be executed and her death broadcast to the world. Moira read the message 17 times. Each reading revealed another layer of Nazreen's strategy. It is a trap, Vance said unnecessarily. She knows you will come. She is counting on it. Of course it is a trap. Morris set down the tablet. The question is what kind. Ibarra leaned against the wall of the intelligence shack, arms crossed. What do you mean what kind? She wants to kill you. Seems straightforward. Nothing about Nazreen is straightforward. Moira began pacing, her mind racing through possibilities. If she just wanted me dead, she could have had her snipers hunting me for weeks. She knows I am operating outside the wire. She knows my patterns. A patient shooter could have taken me out a dozen times by now. So why the elaborate setup? Vance asked. Because she does not just want me dead. She wants me broken first. Moira stopped pacing. She wants me to walk into that meeting knowing it is a trap. She wants me to sacrifice myself for Elena the same way those 17 men sacrificed themselves for me. She wants to prove that Americans will always choose the foolish noble gesture over strategic sense. And will you? Ibarra asked quietly. Choose the foolish noble gesture. Moira did not answer immediately. She walked to the map on Vance's wall and studied the coordinates Nazreen had specified. A valley high in the mountains. Remote. Difficult terrain. Perfect for an ambush. She is holding Elena somewhere else, Moira said finally. The meeting point is just theater. If I show up unarmed and alone, Nazreen gets her propaganda victory. She films my execution and releases it alongside Elena's. 2 Americans dead because of one woman's vendetta. Then we do not play her game, Vance said. We find where Elena is actually being held. Moira nodded slowly. The daughters operate from a network of caves along the Pakistani border. During my captivity, there were at least 6 primary sites. Nazreen rotates between them to avoid detection. Can you narrow it down? Maybe. Moira closed her eyes, forcing herself back into memories she had spent 3 years trying to forget. Nazreen is theatrical. She will want Elena close for the execution. That means one of the larger caves. Somewhere with space for cameras. For witnesses. The training site, Vance suggested. You described it in your debriefings. Large central chamber. Multiple exits. That would be my guess. Moira opened her eyes. But guessing is not good enough. If we hit the wrong location, Elena dies. The weight of that truth settled over the room. 3 people staring at map, trying to find a way to save a woman who had already been given up for dead once. Hurst chose that moment to enter without knocking. I have just received word from battalion, he announced, his voice carrying the particular satisfaction of a man about to deliver bad news. Your request for transfer to Firebase Phoenix has been denied. Furthermore, in light of recent unsanctioned operations, you are hereby confined to base pending a formal review of your conduct. Moira turned to face him. Elena Vasquez is alive. She is being held by the same enemy I have been hunting for weeks. And you want to confine me to base. I want to restore order to my command. Hurst stepped closer. You have been operating outside the chain of command, Staff Sergeant, taking unauthorized actions, killing enemy combatants without proper approval. This ends now. 12 daughters are dead because of my unauthorized actions. Moira kept her voice level despite the rage building in her chest. The attack on Outpost Keating was prevented because of intelligence I gathered. How many more Americans have to die before you take this threat seriously? That is not your decision to make. Hurst's eyes were cold. You are a soldier, not a vigilante. You follow orders. You operate within the system, or you face the consequences. He turned to Vance. Chief Warrant Officer, you will ensure Staff Sergeant Dunn remains on base. Any further unauthorized operations will result in immediate court-martial proceedings for both of you. Hurst left without waiting for a response. Vance let out a long breath. Well, that complicates things. Moira stared at the door Hurst had exited through. Elena has 3 days. Less now. and I'm supposed to sit here and fill out paperwork while Nazreen prepares her execution. We will find another way, Ibarra said. There has to be someone higher up who will listen. Higher up takes time. Time Elena does not have. Mora turned back to the map. I need to think. There has to be an angle I am missing. She studied the terrain until her eyes burned. The caves, the approaches, the patterns she remembered from captivity. Somewhere in that maze of rock and shadow, Elena was waiting, praying, hoping that someone would come for her the way people had come for Mora 3 years ago. 17 men had died trying to rescue Mora. She had carried that guilt every day since. Now she faced the possibility of adding another name to her burden. Another death she could have prevented if only she had been faster, smarter, better. The photograph of Yalda seemed to burn against her chest where she kept it hidden. I taught you, Mora whispered to the empty room. I taught you, and Nazreen turned you into a weapon. And now Elena's going to die because I was not strong enough to stop either of you. No one answered. The ghosts never did. That night, Mora sat alone in her quarters and did something she had not done since her rescue. She wrote a letter. Dear Elena, she began. I do not know if you will ever read this. I do not know if either of us will survive what is coming. But I need you to know that I never forgot you. I never stopped believing that your death meant something. And now that I know you are alive, I will not stop until you are free. She wrote about the guilt, about the 17, about the hunt that had consumed her for weeks. She wrote about Nazreen and Yalda and the terrible knowledge she carried about what she had become in those caves. When she finished, she folded the letter and placed it in her footlocker next to the photograph of Yalda. Then she began planning her unauthorized rescue. The knock came at 0200. Soft. 3 taps. Pause. 2 more. The signal Vance had established for emergencies. Mora opened the door to find both Vance and Ibarra standing in the darkness, their faces grim. We need to talk, Vance said. Not here. They walked to the far edge of the base, past the motor pool, past the sleeping quarters, to a maintenance shed that had been abandoned since a mortar attack 6 months prior. Inside, Vance pulled out his tablet and activated a jamming device. What I am about to tell you does not leave this room, he said. If it does, my career is over. Probably my freedom, too. Mora waited. Vance took a breath. Elena Vasquez was not captured 2 days ago. She has been a prisoner for 3 years. The same 3 years you were held. The words hit Moira like a rifle round the chest. That is impossible. I would have known. Nazreen would have told me. She used every psychological weapon she had. Nazreen did not have her. Vance pulled up a classified file on his tablet. Elena was taken by a different cell, held separately. The daughters acquired her only 6 months ago when they absorbed a smaller insurgent group. Mora's mind raced through the implications. 3 years. Elena had been alive for 3 years while everyone believed her dead, while Mora grieved for her, while her family held a funeral and buried an empty casket. Why was this classified? Mora demanded. Why did no one know? Because command made a choice. Vance's voice was heavy. When intelligence confirmed a second American prisoner existed, they faced a decision. Continue rescue operations for both, knowing the increased complexity would likely result in more casualties, or focus resources on recovering one prisoner and classify the other's existence. They chose me, Mora whispered. They chose the prisoner they had the best intelligence on, the one whose location they could narrow down. Vance met her eyes. I argued for continued efforts to find Elena. I was overruled. The official position became that Elena Vasquez died in the initial ambush. Case closed. Moira felt the room tilt around her. All this time, 3 years of guilt over the 17 who died saving her. And now she learned that another woman had been left behind. Abandoned. Forgotten. Who else knows, she asked. Battalion commander. Division intelligence. A handful of analysts. Vance paused. And now you. Ibarra spoke for the first time. This changes things. This changes everything. Moira turned to Vance, a new fire burning in her chest. You kept this from me. For 3 years you knew Elena was alive, and you said nothing. I was under orders. Vance did not flinch from her anger. Orders I disagreed with. Orders I have regretted every day since. But I followed them because I believed it was the only way to bring you home. And Elena, what about bringing her home? By the time we had actionable intelligence on her location, you were already recovered. Resources were reallocated. The war moved on. Vance's voice cracked. I told myself there was nothing I could do. I told myself she was probably dead anyway. I told myself a lot of things that helped me sleep at night. Mora wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to tear apart every comfortable lie that had allowed good people to abandon one of their own. Instead, she took a breath and focused on what mattered. Where is she now? Mora asked. The actual location, not the meeting point Nazreen specified. That is why I'm telling you this. Vance pulled up a map on his tablet. The communications we intercepted included more than just the ransom demand. There were logistics discussions, supply movements, guard rotations. He pointed to a location marked in red. The training complex. Just like you suspected, Elena is being held in the same caves where you were kept. Mora studied the map. Memories flooded back. The smell of damp stone. The echo of voices in narrow passages. The cold that seeped into bones and never quite left. I know those caves, she said. I know every tunnel, every chamber, every exit. That is what I was counting on. Vance zoomed in on the complex. Current estimate is 15 to 20 daughters on site, plus Nazreen herself. Heavy guard presence around the main chamber where they're likely holding Elena. Suicide odds for a solo insertion, Ibarra observed. Yes. Vance turned to Moira. Which is why you're not going alone. Moira looked between the two men. You would both be throwing away your careers. Court-martial at minimum. Prison if things go wrong. Santiago died, trying to bring you home, Ibarra said. Now there's another woman who needs bringing home. I'm not sitting this one out, and I have 3 years of guilt to make up for. Vance straightened. I chose to save one soldier and abandon another. This is my chance to fix that mistake. Moira felt something shift in her chest. For so long, she had carried this mission alone. The weight of the 90. The weight of the 17. The weight of her own survival when so many others had died. Now she had allies. Real allies. People willing to risk everything for the same cause she had dedicated herself to. The timeline, she said, forcing herself back to tactical considerations. 46 hours until Nazreen's deadline. Vance pulled up a schedule. If we move tomorrow night, we hit the complex while they are preparing for the theatrical execution at the meeting site. Divided attention. Reduced guard presence at the caves. Extraction. I have a contact who can position a helicopter at these coordinates. Vance marked a spot on the map. 20-minute flight to Bagram. Once we are there, the extraction becomes official. Harder for command to bury. And if we fail, Moira said, then Elena dies. Vidi. And Nazreen wins. Vance met her eyes. But if we do nothing, Elena dies anyway. At least this way, we have a chance. Moira looked at the map one more time. The caves where she had been broken and remade. The place where Nazreen had tried to turn her into a weapon against her own people. She was going back. Not as a prisoner this time. Not as a student. As a ghost returning to haunt the woman who had created her. One more thing, Vance said. He pulled up another file on his tablet. The communications intercept included personnel assignments for the complex. Guard positions. Sniper overwatch. Moira scanned the list. Most of the names meant nothing to her. Newer recruits who had joined after her escape. Then she saw it. A name that stopped her heart. Yalda. Assigned primary overwatch. Eastern approach. The girl she had trained. The girl whose photograph she carried against her chest. The girl who had killed 16 Americans at Firebase Phoenix. Moira closed her eyes. When she opened them, her voice was steady. Then I will deal with Yalda too, she said. Whatever that takes. The three of them spent the remaining hours before dawn planning. Routes, timing, contingencies. Every detail that could mean the difference between rescue and disaster. As the first light crept over the mountains, Moira stood alone at the memorial wall one final time. 17 names. 17 sacrifices. And now she understood the full weight of what they had given. They had died so she could live. They had died so she could become the weapon that would bring Elena home. Tomorrow night, she whispered to the stone. Tomorrow night, I finish this. For all of you. The day passed like a hell breath. Moira went through the motions of compliance with Hearst's confinement order, attending meals, responding to routine inquiries, maintaining the appearance of a soldier who had accepted her grounding. Beneath the surface, her mind ran through the mission profile again and again. 18 hours until they moved. 18 hours until she returned to the place that had unmade her. She found herself in the base chapel at midday, not to pray, but to think. The small building was empty, quiet, a rare pocket of stillness in the constant noise of military operations. Moira sat in a back pew and let her thoughts unspool. Elena had been alive all this time, alive and suffering while Moira hunted ghosts and whispered to memorial walls. The knowledge burned like acid in her chest. Footsteps behind her. Ibarra slid into the pew at her side. "Did not figure you for the religious type," he said. "I am not." Moira kept her eyes forward. "But it is quiet here. Quiet helps me think." Ibarra was silent for a moment. Then he pulled something from his pocket. A worn photograph, creased from years of handling. He held it out to her. "Santiago," he said, 3 days before he deployed. "We had dinner at our mother's house. She made his favorite, carne asada. He complained the whole time that she was treating him like he was going off to die." Moira took the photograph. A young man with Ibarra's eyes smiled at the camera, one arm thrown around an older woman who was clearly their mother. He looked happy, unbroken, alive with the certainty that he would come home. He was 22, Ibarra continued. Still thought he was invincible. Thought the war was an adventure. Thought he would do his time and come back a hero. Moira handed the photograph back. He did come back a hero. He came back in a box. Ibarra tucked the photograph away. "Our mother has not been the same since. She lights candles for him every Sunday. Talks to his picture like he can hear her. Maybe he can. Maybe." Ibarra turned to face her. "I need to know something before tonight. If it comes down to a choice between the mission and saving yourself, what will you do?" Moira considered the question carefully. It deserved an honest answer. "I will complete the mission," she said. "Elena comes home. That is the only acceptable outcome, even if it costs your life. 17 men died to bring me home." Moira met his eyes. "If my life is the price for bringing Elena home, then it is a price I am willing to pay." Ibarra studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Santiago would have said the same thing," he said, word for word. They sat in silence after that, 2 soldiers preparing themselves for what was to come. Outside, the Afghan sun climbed toward its peak, marking the hours until darkness fell and the mission began. Vance found them at 1400 hours with concerning news. "We have a problem," he said, keeping his voice low. "Hearst has scheduled a surprise inspection of all intelligence personnel at 1900. He is looking for an excuse to catch us doing something unauthorized. That is 2 hours before we plan to move," Moira said. "I know. We need to adjust the timeline. Move earlier or abort entirely." "Abort is not an option." Moira thought quickly. "If we move at 1700, we hit the caves just after nightfall. Less optimal, but still workable." "That gives us 3 hours to prep," Ibarra said. "Tight, but doable." Vance nodded. "I will move up the helicopter contact. You two get your gear staged. We go at 1700 sharp." The next 3 hours blurred together. Moira packed her kit with methodical precision. Rifle, sidearm, ammunition, night vision, breaching charges, medical supplies. Each item checked and double-checked. At 1630, she retrieved the photograph of Yalda from her footlocker and tucked it into her vest pocket. Ibarra noticed. "The girl from the photograph. She is there. Primary overwatch on the eastern approach," Moira confirmed. "The approach we have to use. Can you do what needs to be done?" Moira did not answer immediately. She thought about Yalda at 14, small hands learning to field strip a rifle. Yalda at 15, her first successful shot at range, the pride in her dark eyes. Yalda at 16, asking questions about America, about freedom, about whether things could ever be different. "I taught her everything she knows," Moira said finally. "I can anticipate her positions, her sight lines, her patterns. That is not what I asked." Moira met his eyes. "If she gives me a choice, I will try to bring her out alive. But if it comes down to her or Elena, I will do what needs to be done. It was not the whole truth, but it was enough truth for now. At 16:55, they gathered at the maintenance shed. Vance had acquired a vehicle through channels Moira did not ask about. Ibarra drove. Vance navigated. Moira sat in the back and watched the base disappear behind them. The gate guard barely glanced at their forged movement orders. 5 minutes later, they were outside the wire and climbing into the mountains. The terrain grew more treacherous as they ascended. Roads became trails. Trails became goat paths. Eventually, even the paths disappeared, and they continued on foot. Moira took point. The mountains welcomed her back like an old enemy, familiar and hostile in equal measure. Every rock formation triggered memories. Every shadow held echoes of the woman she had been during those 11 months. She pushed the memories aside and focused on the mission. They reached the observation point at 1900, just as the last light faded from the sky. Below them, the cave complex sprawled across the mountainside. Lights flickered in several entrances. Guards moved in patterns Moira recognized from her captivity. "I count 12 visible," Ibarra whispered. "Could be more inside. There will be more inside." Moira scanned the complex through her scope. Nazreen keeps a minimum of 20 at the training site, plus whoever is guarding Elena specifically. In Yalda, Moira shifted her scope to the eastern ridge. It took her less than a minute to find the overwatch position, a shallow depression in the rock, invisible to anyone who did not know exactly what to look for. She was not there. The position was empty. "That is wrong," Moira muttered. "Yalda should be in position by now." "Maybe she relocated," Vance suggested. "No." Moira scanned the surrounding terrain. "Yalda is disciplined. She would not abandon her assigned position without orders." "Unless she received new orders," Ibarra said. The implication hung in the air between them. New orders could mean anything. A change in guard rotation, a redeployment to the meeting site, or something worse. "We go now," Moira decided, before whatever changed changes again. She led them down the mountainside, moving through shadows, using terrain features she remembered from 3 years of nightmares. Every step brought her closer to the caves, closer to Elena, closer to Nazreen, closer to the reckoning she had been building toward since the day she escaped these mountains. The first guard died silently, Ibarra's knife finding the gap in his armor. The second fell to Moira's suppressed rifle. They moved through the outer perimeter like ghosts, leaving nothing but bodies in their wake. At the main entrance, Moira paused. Beyond this point lay the tunnels she knew too well, the chambers where she had been trained, the cell where she had spent countless nights plotting her escape. And somewhere in that darkness, Elena waited. Moira checked her rifle one final time. Then she stepped into the cave and let the mountain swallow her whole. The cave smelled exactly as Moira remembered. Damp stone and gun oil, and the faint metallic tang of fear. Her body remembered this place before her mind could catch up, muscles tensing against threats that existed only in memory. She pushed forward anyway. The tunnel system branched in 3 directions from a main entrance. Left led to the training chambers. Right led to the armory and communications hub. Center led deeper into the mountain, toward the living quarters and the cells where prisoners were kept. "Center," Moira whispered. "Elena will be in the holding area." Ibarra and Vance fell in behind her, their movements nearly silent on the stone floor. They passed alcoves where Moira had once slept, corners where she had hidden from Nazreen's watchful eyes, passages she had memorized during countless escape attempts that never succeeded. Until the last one. The first interior guard appeared at a junction 30 meters ahead. Young, alert, rifle held ready. Moira recognized her face from the training sessions she had been forced to observe. One of Nazreen's newer recruits, maybe 2 years with the daughters. Moira did not hesitate. The suppressed round took the guard before she could raise an alarm. 13, she counted silently. 65 remaining. They moved deeper. The tunnels grew narrower, older, carved by water centuries before humans claimed them. Torches replaced electric lights. The air grew colder. Voices ahead. Moira raised her fist, signaling a halt. She pressed against the wall and listened. 2 speakers. Female. Pashto dialect from the border region. They were discussing guard rotations for the prisoner. "She's awake again," one voice said. "Keeps asking when the American woman will come for her." "The ghost will not come," the other replied. "She is too smart to walk into an obvious trap. Nazreen believes she will come. Nazreen knows her better than anyone." Moira processed this information. Elena was awake, aware, still hoping for rescue. And Nazreen was so confident in her trap that she had shared its nature with her subordinates. The two guards rounded the corner and died before they could process what they were seeing. 14. 15. The holding area was exactly where Moira remembered it. A widening in the tunnel system, natural chambers converted to cells with iron bars and heavy locks. During her captivity, she had been kept in the third cell from the left. She had scratched marks into the stone wall to count the days. 417 marks before her escape. Now she stood on the other side of those bars, searching for Elena. The first two cells were empty. The third held supplies. The fourth held a figure huddled in the corner, knees drawn to chest, face hidden. "Elena, Moira gretted." The figure looked up. 3 years had carved new lines into Elena Vasquez's face. Her hair was longer, tangled, streaked with premature gray. But her eyes were the same, dark and fierce, and unbroken despite everything she had endured. "Moira." Elena's voice cracked on the name. "You came." "I came." Moira examined the lock. Standard design, nothing she could not handle. "Cover me." Ibarra and Vance took positions while Moira worked. The lock resisted for 30 seconds before surrendering to her picks. The cell door swung open with a groan of protesting metal. Elena tried to stand and nearly collapsed. Moira caught her, feeling how thin she had become, how fragile. "Can you walk?" Moira asked. "I will crawl out of here if I have to." Elena gripped Moira's arm with surprising strength. "I knew you would come. I told them. Every day I told them someone would come." Vance appeared at Moira's shoulder. "We need to move." That door was loud. He was right. They had minutes at most before the alarm spread. Moira pulled Elena's arm over her shoulder and started toward the exit. They made it 50 meters before the tunnels lit up with muzzle flashes. "Contact front," Ibarra shouted, returning fire. Moira shoved Elena behind a rock formation and added her rifle to the fight. 3 daughters had taken position at a junction ahead, blocking their escape route. More was certainly coming from behind. "Alternate route," Vance called out. "There has to be another way." There was. Moira remembered a side passage that connected to the eastern tunnels. It would add 10 minutes to their extraction, but it would get them around the blockade. "Follow me," she ordered. They moved through the chaos of gunfire and ricocheting rounds. Moira, leading with Elena, stumbling beside her. The side passage was exactly where she remembered, a narrow crack in the rock wall that most people would overlook. They squeezed through one at a time. Ibarra went first, then Elena, then Moira. Vance brought up the rear, firing controlled bursts to discourage pursuit. The eastern tunnels were darker, older. Moira navigated by memory and touch, her free hand trailing along the wall while the other kept Elena upright. "Almost there," she promised. Almost out. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Moonlight filtered through a crack in the ceiling far above. The eastern exit was 20 meters ahead, and standing between them and freedom was Yalda. The girl held her rifle steady, aimed directly at Moira's chest. Her face was a mask of conflicting emotions. Anger, grief, something that might have been love or might have been hate. "Teacher," Yalda said. The word carried the weight of 3 years. Moira released Elena and stepped forward, hand raised slightly. "Yalda, you do not have to do this. You left me." Yalda's voice trembled. "You promised you would teach me to be better. You promised you would show me another way. And then you left. I did not have a choice. You had a choice." Yalda's finger tightened on the trigger. "You chose them over us. Over me." Moira took another step forward. Behind her, she could hear Ibarra shifting position, trying to find an angle. She waved him off with a subtle gesture. This was her burden to bear, her student to face. "I chose to stop killing," Moira said carefully. "I chose to stop being a weapon for someone else's war. That is what I was trying to teach you, Yalda. That you could choose too." Nazreen says choice is an illusion. Yalda's eyes glistened in the moonlight. She says we are all shaped by forces beyond our control, that the only freedom is accepting what we are. Nazreen is wrong. Moira took another step. Closer now. Close enough to see the tears tracking down Yalda's cheeks. You are not what she made you. You are not the kills on your record. You are a girl who deserved better than any of us gave you. Yalda's aim wavered. Her breath came in ragged gasps. I killed 16 Americans, she whispered, at Phoenix. 16 in one morning. I watched them fall, and I felt nothing. What does that make me? It makes you someone who was taught to survive. Moira was close enough to touch the rifle now. Close enough to look directly into Yalda's eyes. But surviving is not living, and killing is not strength. Put down the rifle, Yalda. Come with us. Let me give you the choice I should have given you 3 years ago. For a long moment, nothing moved. The moonlight painted silver across Yalda's tear-streaked face. Her finger trembled on the trigger. Then a shot rang out from behind them. Yalda's rifle clattered to the ground as she clutched her shoulder, crying out in pain. Moira spun to see Ibarra lowering his weapon, his face hard. She was going to shoot you, he said. She was going to surrender. Moira rushed to Yalda's side, pressing her hand against the wound. The bullet had passed through clean. Painful but not fatal. We do not have time for this, Vance urged. More coming. He was right. Moira could hear voices echoing through the tunnels. Footsteps. Nazreen's forces mobilizing. She made a decision. Help me carry her, Moira ordered. She's coming with us. Ibarra started to protest. Moira silenced him with a look. She's coming with us, she repeated. That is not negotiable. Together, they lifted Yalda between them. Elena leaned on Vance for support, and the 5 of them stumbled toward the eastern exit, toward the moonlight, toward whatever waited beyond. Behind them, a voice echoed through the caves. Calm, patient, familiar. Run, little ghost, Nazreen called. Run as fast as you can. But you cannot escape what you are. You cannot escape me. We will meet again. And when we do, only one of us will walk away. Moira did not look back. She kept moving toward the light, carrying her wounded student, leading her rescued friend, racing against the darkness at her heels. The eastern exit opened onto a narrow ledge overlooking a valley bathed in moonlight. Moira scanned the terrain while the others caught their breath. The extraction point was 2 kilometers north. 20 minutes of hard movement under optimal conditions. These were not optimal conditions. Elena could barely stand. Yalda was losing blood despite the field dressing Moira had applied. Vance had taken a graze to his leg during the firefight. Only Ibarra remained fully operational, and even he was breathing hard from the exertion. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. Move, Moira ordered. Stay low. Stay quiet. They descended the ledge in a controlled scramble, half climbing, half falling down the rocky slope. Moira kept one hand on Yalda, steadying the girl when she stumbled. The wound was worse than she had initially assessed. Without proper medical care soon, Yalda would not survive the night. Teacher, Yalda whispered. I am sorry. Save your strength. No. Yalda gripped Moira's arm. I need you to know. The 16 at Phoenix. I did not feel nothing. I felt everything. I just could not let it show. Nazreen watches for weakness. Moira absorbed this information while guiding Yalda over a particularly treacherous stretch of terrain. The girl she had trained was still in there, buried beneath years of Nazreen's conditioning, but still present, still capable of being saved, if they survived the next 20 minutes. Contact, Ibarra hissed. Ridgeline, 200 meters. Moira looked up, silhouettes against the stars. At least 4 daughters had circled ahead to cut off their escape route. They know the extraction point, Vance realized. They are hurting us. Of course they knew. Nazreen had planned for every contingency. She had probably identified the most likely extraction zones the moment she learned the returning ghost was hunting her. Alternate route, Moira decided. South through the ravine. It will add time, but it is the only way around their position. That takes us further from the helicopter, Ibarra protested. It keeps us alive long enough to reach it. They turned south, moving through a narrow ravine carved by centuries of seasonal floods. The walls rose high on either side, providing cover but also limiting their options. If the daughters found this route, they would be trapped. Moira pushed the thought aside and focused on movement. One step, then another. Keep Elena upright. Keep Yalda conscious. Keep everyone moving toward survival. The ravine opened into a broader valley after 500 meters. Moira recognized the terrain from her captivity. Nazreen had brought her here once, early in her training, to teach her about using natural features for concealment. "We cross here," Moira said. "Quick and low. There's cover on the far side." They were halfway across the open ground when the first shot rang out. "Sniper," Ibarra shouted, dragging Elena behind a boulder. Moira pulled Yalda down and scanned for the shooter. The muzzle flash had come from the eastern ridge. Single shooter. Precision fire. One of Nazreen's best. Another shot. Stone exploded inches from Vance's head. He rolled into cover, cursing. "She has us pinned," he called out. "We move, we die." Moira studied the angles. The sniper had excellent positioning. Clear sight lines across the entire valley floor. Professional choice of location. She knew who it was before she even raised her scope. The figure on the ridge was small, patient, utterly still in the way only the most disciplined shooters could achieve. Moira had taught that stillness herself, years ago, to a girl who wanted to learn everything. "Parisa," Moira breathed. Yalda stirred beside her. "Parisa was Nazreen's favorite before you came. She hated you for taking her place. And now she has a chance to prove herself," Moira said. "By killing me." Another shot. This one closer. Parisa was finding her range, adjusting for the distance and wind. Moira had seconds to make a decision. They could not stay pinned here. The pursuit from the caves would catch up within minutes. But crossing the open ground meant death, unless someone eliminated the sniper. "Cover me," Moira told Ibarra. "When I move, you keep everyone else going north. Do not stop for anything." "What are you going to do?" "What I was trained to do." Moira broke from cover before anyone could argue. She ran not away from Parisa, but toward her, zigzagging across the rocky ground. Shots kicked up dirt at her heels. One round tugged at her sleeve, missing flesh by millimeters. She did not slow down. The eastern ridge was steep, but not impossible. Moira climbed with desperate speed. Using handholds she could barely see in the darkness. Parisa's shot stopped. The angle was wrong now. She would have to relocate to get a clear line on Moira. That relocation would take time. Time Moira intended to use. She crested the ridge to find Parisa exactly where she expected. The woman was already moving, trying to reposition for a shot. She saw Moira and swung her rifle around. Too slow. Moira's shot took Parisa in the chest. The woman fell backward, rifle clattering against stone. 16, Moira counted. 62 remaining. She approached the body carefully. Parisa was still breathing, blood bubbling at her lips. Her eyes found Moira's face. "Nazreen was right about you," Parisa gasped. "You are exactly what she made you." "No." Moira knelt beside her. "I am what I chose to become. There's a difference." Parisa tried to laugh. The sound turned into a cough, then a rattle, then silence. Moira closed her eyes and allowed herself one moment of grief for a woman who had never been given the choice Moira was trying to give Yalda. Then she stood and surveyed the valley below. Her team was moving north. Elena supported between Ibarra and Vance. Yalda stumbling along behind them, one hand pressed to her wounded shoulder. They were going to make it. Moira started down the ridge to rejoin them when a voice stopped her cold. "Always so efficient, my ghost." She turned. Nazreen stood 20 meters away, emerging from shadows that should not have been able to conceal her. She carried no rifle, no visible weapon, just the calm certainty of a woman who had planned for this moment. "Did you think I would let you leave without saying goodbye?" Nazreen asked. "After everything we shared." Moira raised her rifle. Nazreen did not flinch. "You will not shoot me," Nazreen said. "Not like this. Not without understanding why I did what I did." "I understand perfectly." Moira's finger rested on the trigger. "You want to break me. Use me. Turn me against my own people. I wanted to save you." Nazreen took a step closer. "I watched you when they first brought you to me. So full of certainty. So convinced that your country was righteous and your cause was just. I wanted to show you the truth. Your truth, not mine. The truth is not owned, child. It simply is. Nazreen spread her hands. I showed you the villages we have lost, the children we have buried, the families destroyed by American bombs. I showed you why we fight, and I still chose to fight against you. Yes, Nazreen's voice carried something like pride. You saw everything, and you still chose them. That is why I released you, because I needed to know if you were strong enough to carry the weight of that choice. Moira kept her rifle raised. And now we finish what we started. Nazreen smiled. One of us dies on this mountain tonight. The other carries this moment forever. That is the only ending our story can have. She reached behind her back and drew a knife. Moira could have shot her, should have shot her, but Nazreen was right about one thing. This needed to end face to face. Moira lowered her rifle and drew her own blade. They met in the space between moonlight and shadow, teacher and student, creator and creation, moving through a dance of violence that felt almost like prayer. Nazreen moved like water over stone, fluid and relentless. Her blade caught moonlight as it arced toward Moira's throat. Moira deflected, pivoted, countered with a strike that Nazreen sidestepped with practiced ease. They had done this before, not with real blades, but with wooden training knives in the caves below. Hundreds of hours of sparring, thousands of exchanges. Each knew the other's patterns as intimately as their own heartbeat. You have improved, Nazreen observed, circling. Your footwork is better. I had motivation. Steel met steel. Moira pressed forward, driving Nazreen back toward the ridge edge. The older woman gave ground willingly, drawing Moira into overextension. The counterattack came faster than Moira anticipated. Nazreen's blade opened a shallow cut across her forearm. Blood welled, hot and immediate. First blood, Nazreen said, just like old times. Moira ignored the pain and reset her stance. She could not afford to fight Nazreen's fight. The woman had decades more experience. In a prolonged exchange, she would lose. She needed to end this quickly. Moira feinted high, then dropped low, sweeping at Nazreen's legs. The older woman jumped the attack, but lost her footing on the loose stone. For one moment, she was off balance. Moira lunged. Her blade found flesh, sliding between ribs. Nazreen gasped, her eyes widening with something that looked almost like satisfaction. Then she headbutted Moira, sending her stumbling backward, and pulled free from the blade. Blood poured from the wound, black in the moonlight. Nazreen pressed her hand against it and smiled. Good, she breathed. Very good. She should have fallen. The wound was deep, possibly fatal. But Nazreen remained standing, her knife still held ready, her eyes still sharp. You think I have not prepared for this moment? Nazreen asked. For years, I have known that one of us would kill the other. I made my peace with death long ago. Then let it come, Moira said. Stop fighting. I cannot. Nazreen shook her head slowly. If I simply let you win, what does that teach you? What does that prove? She attacked again, slower now, but no less dangerous. Moira parried, countered, opened another wound on Nazreen's shoulder. Still the woman would not fall. When I first saw you, Nazreen said between exchanges, I saw a soldier. Broken and afraid, but still fighting. I thought I could use that spirit. Shape it. Direct it against your own people. You failed. Did I? Nazreen's blade nicked Moira's cheek. You are here, are you not? Using everything I taught you. Killing women I trained. You have become exactly what I created. I became what I chose to become. Nazreen laughed, blood flecking her lips. Choice. You Americans and your choices. You think you choose your paths, but the paths were laid before you were born. I did not choose to become what I am. I was made by American bombs falling on my village, by my husband bleeding out of my arms, by my children burning in their beds. The words hit Moira harder than any blade could. She had known the broad strokes of Nazreen's history, but hearing it now, in the space between killing blows, gave it a weight she had never fully felt before. I'm sorry for what happened to you, Moira said. I'm sorry for all of it. But that does not justify what you have done. Justify. Nazreen spat blood. 90 of your brothers for thousands of my people. That is not justice. That is not even revenge. That is barely a whisper of the debt your country owes. She attacked with renewed fury, driven by grief that had festered for decades. Moira defended, giving ground, searching for an opening. It came when Nazreen's wounded side finally betrayed her. A stumble, a moment of weakness. Moira did not hesitate. Her blade found Nazreen's heart. The older woman froze. Her knife fell from fingers that could no longer grip. She looked down at the blade in her chest, then up at Moira's face. "There you are," Nazreen whispered. "My ghost. My beautiful, terrible ghost." She reached up with a blood-stained hand and touched Moira's cheek. The gesture was almost tender. "I am proud of you," she said. "I should not be. You have destroyed everything I built. But I am proud nonetheless. You became exactly what I hoped you would become. Strong enough to make the hard choices. Strong enough to carry the weight." Tears streamed down Moira's face. She did not know when they had started. "Why?" she asked. "Why release me? Why give me the chance to become this?" "Because someone had to stop us." Nazreen's voice was fading. "The daughters. What we became. It was never going to end well. I knew that. I always knew. But I could not stop myself. The rage was too deep. The pain was too old." She coughed, blood spilling over her lips. "You were my hope," she continued. "The one person who understood us completely and still chose a different path. I needed to know that path was possible, even if I could not walk it myself." Her hand slipped from Moira's cheek. "Take care of Yalda," Nazreen breathed. "She deserves the choice I never had. The choice I cannot give her." Her eyes found the stars above. "It is beautiful," she said. "I had forgotten how beautiful." Then she was gone. Moira knelt in the dirt, holding the body of the woman who had broken her and remade her and ultimately set her free. She did not know how long she stayed there. Minutes. Hours. Time had lost meaning. A hand on her shoulder brought her back. "Moira." Vance's voice, gentle but urgent. "We need to go. The helicopter is waiting." She looked up. Vance stood over her, his face lined with concern. Behind him, Ibarra supported Elena and Yalda near the tree line. "Is it done?" Vance asked. Moira looked at Nazreen's body, at the woman who had been her captor, her teacher, her enemy, and in some strange way, her mirror. "It is done," she said. She stood. Her body ached. Her wounds throbbed. But inside, something that had been clenched tight for 3 years finally began to release. "Yalda," Moira called. The girl looked up. Her face was pale from blood loss, but her eyes were clear. "She wanted me to take care of you," Moira said. "Her last words were about you." Yalda's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks, cutting tracks through the dust and dried blood. "I know," Yalda whispered. "She always said I was special, that I would do great things." "You will." Moira crossed to her, took her uninjured hand. Different things than she imagined, but great nonetheless. They made their way to the extraction point as the first hint of dawn touched the eastern sky. The helicopter was waiting, rotors already spinning. Vance had called in every favor he had to make this happen. As they lifted off, Moira looked down at the mountains that had held her captive, that had transformed her, that had finally released her for good. 17 daughters dead by her hand. Nazreen among them. The organization broken, scattered, leaderless. And 3 women saved. Elena, Yalda, and somewhere in the wreckage of the past 3 years, herself. It was not justice. It was not even close to balance. But it was a beginning. Bagram airfield materialized through the helicopter's windows as the sun crested the horizon. Moira had not seen it from this angle since the day she returned from captivity 3 years ago. Then she had been broken, hollowed out, uncertain if she would ever feel whole again. Now she returned with blood on her hands and something like peace in her chest. Medical teams swarmed the landing pad before the rotors stopped spinning. Elena was loaded onto a stretcher, her hand reaching for Moira's as they wheeled her away. "Thank you," Elena said. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of 3 years of waiting. "Rest," Moira told her. "I will find you when this is over." Yalda required more delicate handling. Armed guards surrounded the stretcher, uncertain how to process a wounded enemy combatant brought in by American soldiers on an unauthorized mission. Vance intercepted the ranking officer before things could escalate. "This woman is a critical intelligence asset," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had stopped caring about consequences. "She has information on remaining daughter positions, communication networks, and future attack plans. She is to be treated as a protected source, not a prisoner." The officer looked skeptical but relented. Yalda was wheeled toward the medical facility with guards in tow, her eyes finding Moira's one last time before she disappeared through the doors. Moira watched her go. The girl who had killed 16 Americans. The girl who had wept in the moonlight and confessed that she felt everything. The girl Nazreen had asked her to save. She would keep that promise, whatever it took. Colonel Hurst arrived within the hour, his face purple with barely contained rage. He found Moira sitting on a supply crate outside the medical facility, still covered in dust and blood, her wounds hastily bandaged by a field medic. "You are finished," Hurst spat. "Court-martial, dishonorable discharge, prison, your career, your freedom, everything you have worked for. Gone." Moira looked up at him. She felt strangely calm. "Corporal Elena Vasquez is alive," she said. 3 years as a prisoner. 3 years that command knew about and did nothing to stop. Would you like to explain that to the press, Colonel? Or to her family? Or to the congressional committee that will inevitably investigate once this becomes public?" Hurst's face shifted from purple to white. "That information is classified. Information has a way of becoming unclassified when the right people start asking questions." Moira stood, and despite the height difference, Hurst took a step back. 17 soldiers died trying to rescue me. Their families were told they died as heroes. What will those families say when they learn that another prisoner was abandoned because it was inconvenient to save her? The silence stretched between them. Hurst's jaw worked, searching for a response that would not destroy his career. "What do you want?" he finally asked. Moira had thought about this during the helicopter ride. The leverage she held, the outcomes she could demand, the justice she could extract from a system that had failed Elena, failed the 90, failed everyone who had trusted it to do the right thing. "I want the remaining daughters found and eliminated," she said. "I want Yalda given a chance at rehabilitation instead of cell. I want Elena to receive full medical care and a hero's recognition for surviving what she survived. And I want you to disappear from my sight and never obstruct an operation against the daughters again." Hurst stared at her. "That is all. You could bury me. Bury everyone involved in the Vasquez decision. And you want operational authority. I want to finish what I started." Moira met his eyes. "Nazreen is dead. 17 of her daughters are dead. But there are more out there. Scattered. Leaderless. Dangerous. Someone needs to hunt them before they regroup. And that someone is you. That someone has always been me." Moira turned toward the medical facility. "Do we have an understanding, Colonel?" Hurst said nothing. She took his silence as assent. Inside the medical facility, she found Ibarra sitting outside Elena's room. He had cleaned up, changed into fresh fatigues, but exhaustion still carved deep lines around his eyes. "How is she?" Moira asked. "Stable." Ibarra ran a hand through his hair. "Malnourished. Some old injuries that healed wrong. But she's going to make it." "Good." Ibarra looked up at her. "What happens now?" Moira leaned against the wall beside him. "Now we finish it. The daughters are broken, but not destroyed. Nazreen built something that will not die easily. Ibarra's eyebrow rose. "I could use a partner. Someone who knows why this matters. Someone I can trust." Ibarra was quiet for a long moment. He pulled out the photograph of Santiago, studied his brother's smiling face. "He would have liked you," Ibarra said finally. "Would have followed you anywhere." "He already did." Moira's voice softened. "They all did. The 17. They followed me into those mountains without knowing who I was or whether I was worth saving. I owe them more than I can ever repay. So we pay it forward." Ibarra tucked the photograph away. "We save the ones who can still be saved. We stop the ones who cannot." "Yes." He stood, extended his hand. "Then I am in. Until it is done." Moira shook his hand. The grip was firm. The commitment was real. They stood together in the hallway, two soldiers bound by shared purpose, shared loss, shared determination to see this through to the end. The door to Elena's room opened. A nurse emerged, nodding to Moira. "She's asking for you." Moira entered the room. Elena lay propped against pillows, her face pale, but her eyes alert. Machines beeped softly around her, monitoring vitals that were slowly stabilizing. "You look terrible," Elena said. Her voice was hoarse, but there was a hint of her old humor underneath. "You should see the other guy." Moira pulled a chair to the bedside. "How are you feeling?" "Like I spent 3 years in a cave." Elena attempted a smile. "Oh wait." The joke fell flat, weighed down by the reality behind it. Moira took Elena's hand. "I am sorry," Moira said. "I thought you were dead. For 3 years, I thought you died in that ambush. If I had known, you would have come sooner." Elena squeezed her hand. "I know. I never doubted it. Even when they told me no one was looking. Even when Nazreen said I had been forgotten. I knew someone would come. Nazreen talked to you about me. All the time." Elena's eyes grew distant. "She was obsessed with you. Called you her greatest creation. Her ghost who would not stay dead. She said you would either destroy her or make her legacy eternal. I think she was hoping for both." Moira absorbed this. Even in death, Nazreen's complexity continued to reveal itself. "She's gone now," Moira said. "I killed her. Last night on the mountain." "Good." Elena's voice carried no sympathy. "She deserved worse." "Maybe." Moira thought of Nazreen's final moments. The pride in her eyes. The hand on her cheek. The whispered request to save Yalda. Maybe she deserved a lot of things. Elena studied her face. "You are different. Something changed in you." Everything changed. Moira looked toward the window, where morning light was flooding the room. "I spent 3 years hunting ghosts. Now the ghosts are gone, and I have to figure out what comes next." "What has come next?" Moira turned back to her. "First, you heal. Then you go home to whatever life you want to build. You have earned that. 100 times over, you have earned that. And you." "I finished what Nazreen started." Moira stood, her hand still holding Elena's. "The daughters are scattered, but not destroyed. Someone needs to make sure they never regroup. Someone needs to make sure no one else goes through what we went through." Elena held her gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Give them hell," she said. "For both of us." Moira squeezed her hand one last time. "Count on it." 6 weeks later, the last of the daughters fell on a frozen ridge in the Hindu Kush. Moira lowered her rifle and watched the distant figure crumple into the snow. 23 confirmed kills since that first night on the mountain. 23 women who had chosen to fight rather than surrender. 23 names added to a ledger that would never truly balance. 3 others had accepted her offer. 3 who dropped their weapons when she gave them the choice Nazreen never had. They were in rehabilitation now, following the path Yalda had begun to walk. It was not justice. It was not redemption. But it was something. "Clear," Ibarra reported through her earpiece. "No additional contacts." "Copy." Moira began the long walk down the ridge. Exfil in 30. The helicopter was waiting in the valley below. Vance sat in the back, reviewing intelligence reports on a tablet. He looked up as Moira climbed aboard. "That is the last confirmed cell," he said. "Network analysis shows no remaining operational capacity. The Daughters of the Mountain are officially dissolved." Moira settled into her seat as the helicopter lifted off. She should have felt triumph, satisfaction, something to mark the end of a mission that had consumed her for months. Instead, she felt empty, hollowed out by violence, wondering what came next. The flight back to Bagram took 2 hours. Moira spent most of it staring out the window, watching the mountains that had shaped her slide past beneath the clouds. Nazreen had called her a ghost, a returning spirit who could not rest until her purpose was fulfilled. Now that purpose was complete. The question was whether she could learn to be something other than a weapon. Yalda was waiting on the tarmac when they landed. The girl had changed in the weeks since her capture. The hollow look in her eyes had softened. She stood straighter, spoke with more confidence. The rehabilitation program was working slowly but surely, unwinding years of Nazreen's conditioning. "Teacher," Yalda said, "is it over?" Moira studied her face, saw the hope there, the fear, the desperate need to believe that the cycle of violence could actually end. "It is over," Moira confirmed. The last of them. We found them all. Yalda closed her eyes. When she opened them again, tears were streaming down her cheeks. What happens now, she asked. Now you keep healing. Mora put a hand on her shoulder. You finish your education. You build a life that has nothing to do with rifles and mountains and revenge. And you? Mora had been asking herself that question for weeks. The answer had finally started to take shape. I'm going home, she said. For the first time in 3 years, I am going home. The debrief took 4 days. Moira sat in windowless rooms and recounted every operation, every decision, every kill. The generals and intelligence officers asked their questions and made their notes and ultimately decided that her actions had been justified. More than justified. Heroic, some of them said. The daughters had been responsible for over 100 American deaths. Moira had dismantled them almost single-handedly. Medals were discussed. Commendations. The kind of recognition that built careers. Moira declined all of it. She visited Elena on the last day before her flight home. The woman had been transferred to a military hospital in Germany, where specialists were helping her body remember how to function after 3 years of captivity. You look better, Moira said. I feel better. Elena sat up in her bed, moving with care, but without assistance. They say I might be able to walk normally again in a few months. Maybe even run. That is good. Elena studied her face. You are leaving. Tomorrow. Moira pulled a chair close. There is a plane to Ramstein, then a connection to the States. I should be home by Thursday. Home. Elena tested the word like she had forgotten its meaning. What is that even going to feel like? After everything? I do not know, Moira admitted. I have spent so long fighting that I am not sure I remember how to do anything else. You will figure it out. Elena reached for her hand. We both will. That is the whole point, right? We survived, so we could figure out what comes next. Moira squeezed her hand. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you will not disappear. That you will call. Right? Something. I spent 3 years thinking you were dead. I did not want to spend another 3 years wondering if you were okay. Elena smiled. The expression looked almost natural now. I promise. Same goes for you, by the way. No vanishing into the Montana wilderness to become a hermit. No promises on that one. They laughed together. It felt strange. Unfamiliar. Like muscles that had not been used in years, slowly remembering their purpose. Moira stood to leave. At the door, she paused. Thank you, she said, for surviving, for holding on, for giving me something to fight for when I needed it most. Elena's eyes glistened. Thank you for coming back, for being exactly who Nazreen said you were. And who was that? A ghost who would not stay dead. Elena smiled through her tears. The most stubborn, relentless, beautiful ghost I have ever known. Montana welcomed her home with snow. Moira stood at the edge of her mother's property, looking out over the mountains that had shaped her childhood. Different mountains than the ones in Afghanistan. Softer, greener in summer, though now they wore winter white. Her mother had cried when she arrived, had held her for 10 minutes without saying a word, had then made her favorite meal and asked no questions about where she had been or what she had done. That was the gift of home. The people who loved you without needing to understand. The cemetery was a short drive from the house. Moira walked between headstones until she found the one she was looking for. Master Sergeant Thomas Dunn, beloved husband and father. He gave everything for his country. Her father had been dead for 16 years. She had been 16 herself when the notification team came to the door. Too young to understand. Too old to forget. Hi, Dad, she said. It has been a while. The wind whispered through the bare trees. Somewhere a bird called out, lonely and distant. I finished something, she continued. Something important. There were these women, the daughters of the mountain. They killed a lot of our people. Killed them the way you were killed. From distance. From shadow. She took a breath. I stopped them. All of them. It took a long time and it cost a lot. But they're gone now. She knelt in the snow, placed her hand on the cold stone. I used to think I was doing it for revenge. For the 90. For the 17 who died trying to save me. But I think I was really doing it for you. Trying to prove that your daughter was worth something. That I could be the soldier you always wanted me to be. Tears froze on her cheeks. I am done proving things now. I'm going to rest. Heal. Figure out who I am when I am not hunting ghosts. She stood, brushed snow from her knees. I love you, Dad. I hope you're proud of me. The wind answered with silence. But somewhere in that silence, Moira thought she heard something like peace. If this story moved you, share your thoughts about what resonated most. Perhaps you know someone who served and carried weight like Moira carried. Or perhaps you have witnessed the quiet strength of someone who refused to give up. Whatever your connection, we would love to hear about your favorite moment or character. 90 brothers avenged. 23 daughters fallen. 3 women saved from the darkness. Staff Sergeant Moira Dunn walked back to her mother's house as the sun set over the Montana mountains, painting the snow in shades of gold and amber. The war was over. The ghosts were at rest, and the woman they called the returning ghost had finally, truly come home.